Welcome to Bleav in Chargers with the great Lorenzo Neal. Matt Money Smith here, of course, an all-decade performer, an all-pro, and quite simply, one of the greatest to have ever played the position of fullback and then some. Always great to get into it with Lorenzo Neal, especially now with OTAs and especially now with Jim Harbaugh and this physical brand of football that is showing up in OTAs that we get to dig into here, Lo. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll have mandatory minicamp next week. This week, though, a couple things went down. Golf tournament, the Charger Impact Fund charity golf tournament. We'll get into that. I was out there on Monday, and the OTAs that were open to the media yesterday as well, along with some press conferences. But a big thank you to all of you for downloading, subscribing, listening. If you do have time and you can just leave a rating, that helps us grow. If you can leave a comment, even better. We do our best to get over to YouTube. If you watch it on YouTube and respond to some of your comments, I've been having a little back and forth here, Lo, and I feel as though I've reached the end because a guy asked me to stop butchering Vidal's name, Kamani Vidal. And I'm like, I said it Vidal first because of Vidal Sassoon, and I had a buddy Vidal Singh that I grew up with. So I sent him the link that has all of the different play-by-play games of Kamani Vidal. And I'm like, so yeah, I thought that too. I was being nice. And then he wrote back. He's like, hey, you're better than those guys. All right. I'm like,
who is this guy? Who is this guy, Money? I love him. Money, he's telling you the truth. He said, don't be average. Money, you never have been average. That's why Monday, when you went out there hitting the ball, I heard 300 yards, I heard you drive for show, you putt for dough. Tell us about your golf game.
Yeah.
Tell about how good was that golf game Monday.
Well, my golf game is non-existent right now. I broke my shoulder surfing, so I've been dealing with a non-displaced fracture. I can still surf, but I cannot swing a golf club. So
wow,
but that's good because instead of just being with a group and being the celebrity and disappointing that poor group, their buddies get Justin Herbert, the other ones get Joey Bosa, and this guy gets stuck with the play-by-play guy. Thankfully, it just allowed me to float around and talk to everyone. I'll start with this, though, Lo, and I think you can speak to this, all the different teams and coaches and rosters that you've been part of, that you've played on. When you're in the offseason and it's something that is not mandatory, it's voluntary, but it does great. They raised a couple $100,000 for the Chargers Impact Fund on Monday. So, the players are great that way, and they want to support the community and support the charity, but I've never – and I've been doing this charity golf tournament for 5 years now, I think. Maybe 6 years we've been doing it. I have never seen this turnout. I have never seen this turnout. Derwin James was out. Derwin James never played golf before. He's out there on a golf course trying to swing a club just so he can be part of it. And that really stuck out to me. There's a bunch of stuff that we can – because I do think it does apply to the football season. But that's the first thing. When you see – to me, that speaks to buy-in, that this was really important for. So I know I'm going long. I want to point this out.
No,
Harbaugh has his own format. He's got his own format. Of course he does, right?
Right.
He's got his own format. Normally what happens in a charity golf tournament is you're in a group of 5 or maybe even 6, and you're playing best ball. Whoever has the best drive, you play from that spot. Then whoever has the best approach, you play from that spot. Whoever has the best, spot to putt from, you play from that spot, and you move it along, right?
Yeah.
Well, Harbaugh has what he calls the Harbaugh. You do that for 13 holes, okay? And then you crown the winner of the scramble. Whoever has the lowest net score at the end of 13 holes is crowned the winner. They're given a trophy. Harbaugh gives you a big hug. Way to go. The next 5 holes are an individual competition. Competitors welcome is what he says. Hey, competitors welcome. It's an individual competition. You have to play your own ball. You have to score double bogey or better on the first hole to advance, bogey or better on the next hole to advance, pars on the next 2 holes to advance to the 18th, where everybody tees off together, whoever's left, and if you have to play it again over and over and over, so be it. This dude, and I still remember his name, Mason Crawford, drains a 35-footer for birdie to win the tournament, and you would have thought Harbaugh just won the national championship. He was so pumped for this guy, and he's cheering, and he's like, this is what it's all about. Competition, the pressure was on. How about our guy draining that? It was hilarious. But everybody's crowded around the 18th hole, all the players. No one left. Everybody is geeked for these eight people that were left on the final hole to actually crown an individual champion.
Money, I don't think that's funny at all. Let me tell you, the next golf tournament that I put on, I'm going to use that. I'm going to make them pay, because I was going to ask you, okay, what happened to the other four? So 14 they play, and then the last three they just go. Everyone goes.
So it's a scramble. So everyone's playing their own hole. Everybody's 14th hole is different, or 15th hole, and maybe you get the shaft there because you got a harder hole, but whatever. And then everybody that's left meets on the 18th. And the individuals that are left play the 18th hole. All the people are gathered around like it's a huge tournament. It was awesome.
That's friggin' unbelievable. I friggin' love that. I don't think I'm mad at you, Money. You didn't invite me down to that. I would have made the 4-hour drive to come play in that tournament to watch that, man. But that's absolutely awesome, man. I love that format called the hardball. I'm in. I'm in.
Yeah, take it up with Jim. I know you and Coach talk regularly. Tell him, where's my invite? No doubt he'll probably apologize profusely for 5 minutes and make sure you're on the list next year. He also pointed out the reason why it's 13 holes for the scramble. He told a great story, and he said when he was young, he and John, the family didn't have enough money for those kids to belong to the country club and golf. So he and John would sneak under the fence. And you can't start on one. And he said the starter could see two. He's like, so we would pretty much start at 3 if it was really early, or we'd even have to start on 4 because you could still see the third tee from the starter shack. He said, and then we'd have to stop before 18. He's like, so we would play 13 holes. He's like, so it harkens back to my childhood when we would sneak on the golf course and play together.
Great. That's absolutely great. That's absolutely great. So what was the name of the guy again? Because I'll never forget it now.
I think it was either Mason Chandler or Mason. It was something like that. Yeah, but young kid. He was like 23 years old, good looking kid.
35 footer.
35 footer for birdie. And like I said, just to see, and what a great moment for him, right? You've got Herbert and Josh Palmer and Ladd McConkey and Joe Alt and Jim Harbaugh and all these people surrounding the green, like erupting in like you just won a championship.
He'll tell that story. Mason's going to tell that story forever. That's a moment. And I think, making the transition, I think that's those moments that from football, from Pee Wee to Pop Warner, doesn't matter. But that's a moment. There's Mason out there with these athletes, these superstars, people that bigger than life. And he's out there and they're cheering for him just like he's cheering for them in that stadium. Do you know what that young man went home? Do you think he didn't call everyone and say, you can't believe what just happened? I mean, probably wanted to get footage of guys giving him high five. These guys he never touches. These are guys he never probably shakes their hand. These are guys they would never cheer for him. But because of the moment and because of the environment, that's how you create winners, but that's how you create also that team camaraderie. And I think that's what Harbaugh's trying to create as far as that these OTAs, when big plays are happening, you just see how this team can come together. And those are one of those moments that Harbaugh likes to thrive on. And I think that was just a prime example of what it takes to win too.
Yeah. And I think it also, like I said, it just shows the buy-in. Total buy-in, like no questions asked, and that goes, look, the Spanoses are big golfers, and I'm sure that they're like, wait a minute, we're doing what? I only get to play 13 holes, maybe I don't get to, I don't even get to play 18, and like just how, and I don't want to say, I don't know if persuasive, maybe it's persuasion, but I think just the belief, like the seeds of belief that Harbaugh plants, where he just says, hey, this is how we're going to, I know these people are paying, donating a lot of money to charity to get out there with us, to be part of this. And we appreciate that. And you know what? Maybe they won't be okay with 13 holes, but we'll cross that bridge with, when we get to it, but this is how we're going to do it. And everybody just said, okay, all right, let's do it. That works. Let's just see how it goes. And it went great. It
still raised more money than you said. You've been out there 5 years and this is the most you've seen. Yeah. That just goes to tell you the hardball effect too, because Herbert's been there. All these players have been there. It goes to show you how the community and just how the football world, how they come to hardball or just that buzz about this man. It's what is it about the hardballs or Jim and what he brings to the table that just is infectious. You have a fan base that you create a new fan base. You have a bunch of Michigan fans now. Guess what? They're Charger fans because of Harbaugh. You have just created a fan base that if you start off on the right foot, and I think that's why it's so imperative. These guys are going hard in OTAs. That's why you're seeing that you have, only 5 guys maybe not showing up. Gus, some of these guys haven't, but the majority of the team is there. Only one guy hasn't been there at all because, whatever reason it is. But that just goes to show you the buy-in and what Harbaugh's trying to show the fans that, hey, there's a new sheriff in town, and that's why he wants to get off to a good start, because you can gain a lot of fans, you can gain a lot of momentum, and that's why right now these OTAs and what they're doing now for the season, you want to hit it running.
And speaking of hitting it running, Lo, we had a great conversation with him after. I was doing the radio show with Petros. You know, we've been doing it down here for 2 decades now. And there's 2 things that came out of that conversation. First, I do want to tell you about BetOnline, because the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Finals are being played right now. Number 1 source for the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Finals this season. BetOnline, every matchup, every stat, even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. Yes, in-game spreads as they change. All of that at BetOnline. When the game's over, head over to the online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, unwind with one of the 150 slots games. Yes, they got it all. So hit up the website today, get in on the action, use the promo code Bleav, BLEAV. That's going to get you 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's code BLEAV, Bleav. BetOnline, the game starts here. So 2 things that come out of it. You always hear players say, man, just coach has a way of just making you feel really good about yourself, man. Just, it's all positivity and you know, and I've come across coach before since he's been hired, but my partner Petros hasn't. So it's the first time that they saw each other. And Petros calls games for Fox, and he called a lot of Harbaugh's Stanford games for Fox. And you would have thought that Jim was interviewing him just to make sure that he felt special, that he was talking. Oh, I remember the production meetings with Petros Papadakis, and I would tell my guys, you better perform because this guy's got energy, and he's going to have a call that you're going to want to keep for the rest. And you could just see, yeah, he's beaming. He's like, hey, this is great, man. This guy's freaking celebrating me. I love this guy, you know. And you know, the interview gets done, and he's like, man, things are really changing around here for the Chargers. Let me tell you. Like, yeah, you know what?
You're like, yeah, we haven't had one play yet. You're like, yeah, Pets, haven't had one play yet. He's like, it's changing.
But that's what he does. You know, that's what Harbaugh does, is he recognizes how to make everyone feel great, you know, feel great about, you know, what they're doing and who they are and what they're bringing to the table for the team. And it was just right there in front of me. The second thing on the flip side of that, and on the other end of the spectrum, was me saying, hey, coach, I was out there at OTAs. I mean, let's talk about 4th quarter. Let's talk about that final period, man. Let's get into it. And he's like, yeah, how about that? I was like, oh, it's blowing my mind watching these guys. They're all juiced and they're ready to go, and kind of talk us through what the thinking is there. And he's like, well, you know, games are tight. End of the first half. End of half is tight. End of game is tight. Got to make sure you're ready to, you know, outperform your opponents. I'm like, yeah, I saw you out there, man. You're dragging those 3 plates. What is that, like 150 pounds? He goes, what? I go, I saw 3 plates on there. He goes, those are 100-pound plates. Okay. I was like, my bad, coach.
He switched on you that quick? He switched?
300 pounds. Oh, yeah. He's like, those are 100-pound plates now. He goes, you know, there's guys out there with 400 or 500 pounds on that sled. I was like, okay. All right. I shouldn't have thrown out a number. Should have just said the sled. It was like this. He just flipped. He goes, what? And I was like, yay. I just saw the plates out there were 45s. He's like, they're not 45s. 100-pound plates.
hey, Money, you're like, you want to get away? You want to get on that airline? Oh, you're like, coach, I was like, hey, you got 3 plates over there, 150 pounds. That he switched real quick. What?
Oh, yeah.
100 pounds? You're like, okay, Jim, okay.
I was like, Jim, look at me. I'm a tiny guy. All right. I was put it in my frame of reference here. I'm sorry. It was great. So going back to a couple episodes ago when I talked about Harbaugh pulling the sled, 300 pounds is what he was out
there. Get it right.
Yeah, corrections and retractions on my part, because boy, did his
plus the sled, that's over 300. Plus the sled, that's over 300. Get it right.
Exactly. So yeah. So that the only other thing I would share that I took away from the golf tournament is yet again, Lo, and I Bleav you played with Ogden, right?
Jonathan Ogden?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah. So he's the only person I can think of that, and he was a UCLA guy, and I happened to be at a spot with him when I was doing basketball. Actually, was even anyway. I ended up being at a draft party for Baron Davis with Ogden, and I can remember when you're off the football field, it's different than being on the football field when everyone's in pads. So I was at a thing with Baron Davis and Jonathan Ogden was there, and I just remember thinking, this is just the largest human I've ever seen. It's not tall. It's not It's everything. The way they're put together. That's Joe Alt. Joe Alt is the biggest thing that I have seen since Jonathan Ogden. The
Really?
way, yes, just being next to him in that setting where he was sitting next to me. He did the interview with us. We're chatting afterwards. He's standing next to me. And it's one thing next to me. There's a photo. I think I put it up on my Instagram from our AM 570 LA sports feed that has the photo of Joe in between Petros and I. Petros is a big guy. Petros is probably 6'1", 2. I guess he's probably 225, 230 right now. He looks like a child. Now, I look like a baby, but he looks like a child.
Wow.
That's what it reminded me of, Lo,
Wow.
and what that meant out there on that field to have Jonathan Ogden anchoring that line.
Yeah, without a doubt. If Big Joe's like that, anything, I mean, that's why my mouth just dropped because Jonathan Ogden was a huge man. He towered over the defensive lineman and offensive lineman, big, wide, tall, and they just walk, and you're like, man, that's the closest thing to a giant. So, and if he could play as well as Jonathan, I'm telling you, this franchise, Herbert is going to be in good hands because what got Slater on the other side. You're in good hands if that big fella can move and dance like Ogden, but just being that big, that's a massive man.
Yeah, big. And like I said, when you're on the football field, everybody's big. When they're in pads and they're in cleats and they look like warriors, right? Going into battle when you're all in your plastic outfits and stuff.
Sure.
But when you're off the field, it's different. You're typically surprised, like, oh, it's not quite as big as I would have thought. There's a lot of that ends up happening. Herbert's another one who's just a freaking horse. When you see him off the field, you're like, dude, that guy's freaking huge for a quarterback. So, but yeah, that is the other thing that jumped out at me with Alt is just the sheer size. And is he gonna be the next Jonathan Ogden? That's crazy to say. He's arguably the greatest offensive lineman to have ever played the game. But at least the size is very reminiscent of that.
How did he hit the ball? He's a big guy. Does athletic ability? Did you see him swing the club? Could he crush it or?
So I asked him. I did not see him. I asked him, and he said, well, I had to borrow a set of clubs. He goes, my clubs aren't out here.
Okay.
And so Derek, who runs Rolling Hills Country Club, is a friend of mine. And I looked over to him. I said, hey, Derek, what's the tallest individual that you are prepared to rent clubs to? And he said, maybe 6'2". It's like, and Joe, what do we got here? He goes, 6'9". I said, all right. So how'd it go? He goes, not great. He said he was able to get around the course and was having a good time. But yeah, you've got clubs that are probably 7 inches too short.
Right. You're playing out there with a fork. That's like that's like playing golf with a fork for that big fella. How does Herbert hit it? Did you watch Herbert? Can Justin crush the ball? Is he pretty consistent?
Yeah. He can play. Herbert's really good. I'll tell you what, though, the best golfer on the Chargers, Justin's up there. He is definitely up there. Zion Johnson, played golf in high school. He was one of the top golfers in Maryland when he was in high school, so he can play. But the best golfer on the Chargers is defensive tackle out of Boise State, Scott Matlock, who was he was one of the top golfers in his state when he was in high school. And
Herbert's 3? So
might be 3, might be. Zion said he doesn't play a lot now, so he does not play as much as he used to. But yes, I Bleav it is widely acknowledged. I don't know what the order would be, but I think it's widely acknowledged that Scott Matlock is the best player and he's huge. He's probably close to 300 pounds, and he's out there still with the soft hands and the sweet swing and this. I don't know what he shot. I didn't get a chance to ask him, but I was talking to some of the. I was making the rounds after in the bar, which is what I do best. Hold on to a beer and discuss things with people, and they seem to say, "Oh yeah, that dude can play."
Well, speaking of discussing things with people, did Jim get into? Did the fans have an opportunity to talk about expectations? Was he able to tell the expectations? At the end of the tournament, the head coach is going to say some words, thank everyone from coming. Did you get a feel of what he was trying, the persona that he was trying to carry to the new fan base, or trying to keep the new fan base?
Yeah, it was a very simple message, and it was competitors are welcome. That's what we want. It's and we talked to Jim, we talked to Joe Ortiz for a while, and he talked about the signing of Leatherwood and something we discussed. I think we discussed it last week if I remember right. Low, but he just talked about, look, we're going to sign someone that we think could be the 52nd best player on the team. and we're looking for the 51st best player on the team. And you're going to see, he goes, we're not done. You're going to see a lot more of that. So I would say keep your eyes on the news wires and Chargers.com and all the social media feeds, because they are not done. And that's
Right.
kind of what he talked about. He's like, can he be the 8th best O lineman? Can he be
Right.
the best? Can he be the third, instead of the swing tackle, can he be the backup to the swing tackle? Like, those are the things that you're looking to upgrade. There's a lot of talk, and this I'll segue as well, low into OTAs, just because a lot of talk about Q. And I think it's important that Joe Ortiz is putting his name on Q and saying, no, we loved him. We loved him. And we were going to take him in Baltimore. So he is not distancing himself from that pick after it didn't go great for Q in year one. He's saying, oh no, this is a guy that if Zay wasn't, if the Chargers had not taken him and taken Zay Flowers instead, we probably would have taken him. And that's putting your name on it and putting investment into Quentin.
But when you're hearing that, I totally understand that. As I digress, you're hearing that, but you're hearing in the media that, hey, he's still dropping passes. You watch some of the stuff that's out there to say, yeah, there's still from the sophomore year, you're saying it hasn't been much improvement. I mean, first it was talking about, hey, he looks okay, but now after the second week of OTAs, you're starting to hear, yeah, here's some drops and overhand balls hitting him in the hands and drop. So are you seeing that too? Is this just some of the talking heads out there?
Yeah, no, I saw a little bit of that. I saw some really good catches, but I did see a drop, on an open throw, and you could see he was not happy with it. Now, Sanjay Lal talked yesterday to, who's the new wide receivers coach. I got the transcript right here. So yesterday, and there was, as you would, understand, a lot of Quentin talk. That's what the majority of it was. And he's a really neat guy. So they brought him down from Seattle. He is the person that a lot of people point to as to why DK Metcalf had such a big impact after he was passed over for whatever 7 or 8 other receivers before Seattle got him in the second round there. And so there was a lot of that, like what can you do for Quentin that maybe you did for D? And he was great. He's like, look, let me see. I'll see. He talked about, let's see, on Quentin. Here we go. He's impressive. He's got a lot of juice. He almost bounds when he runs. Working in his body positioning is one of the biggest things that we've done. He has really improved some of his stop type routes, like keeping his shoulders over his feet longer and not looking early. That's a big jump he's made so far. I tell him, don't look back. I wasn't coaching him. I wasn't here. I don't know the circumstances. It's not fair to look back. We look forward. He moves as well as any receiver I have ever seen.
Wow.
The potential is very high. I'm coaching him with great detail. It's you approach each day with technique, approach each nuance of every route, master the technique, and let's see where it falls. That's the most fair way to do it with every player. So
it's fair enough.
Yeah,
that's a fair assessment. But my question, Money, I'm one of those guys that played it. I understand. Hey, look, have some bad games, media can pile on you, and you can be on an island, and you have to talk to yourself when you go home and you look and you're saying, do I have it? What do I got? And you got to be a strong-minded individual, because now when you're going out there, especially me, I was fullback, and sometimes you have to run K4, and those third down and ones are important, because they're, even though it's not a big, it's everyone, it's just a little catch, but it's a chain mover. It's that third, it's that running that, because we ran so much power, but it's making that little 2-yard catch and turning up, picking up 5 yards just to move the chain, because the defensive end, he's coming thinking it's going to be LT or power, and you slip him, and all of a sudden you're in the flat because he doesn't guard you, because he thinks you're getting ready to blow him up. And the ball in your hand's been sweating, you've been, been blocking, and the ball comes, it's just, and you get so tight, and you're like, oh my God, I got it, and you body catch it. You say, I don't want to drop this. You get in front of it, you fall down. I've been there.
Yeah.
So it's those things that, how do you fight out of those difficult moments? So so is this guy in a place that, is it just because sometimes the media can get on a guy and just belittle him and just make him just go into that, where they shrink on you? Or is this criticism just, or is this too much of the past that people say, you know what, well, this is who he is? Has he reached that box that they just want to put him in and say, he can't catch, he'll never be able to catch? Is that where he's at? Or do you think the media and the perception is going to give him an opportunity to showcase what he can do? Or do you think we're not at that point yet?
No, I love that you brought it up, Lo, because Quentin talked to us as well after OTA. So I'm gonna give you everything, right? And he was great, and he's a great kid, and I shouldn't say kid. He's a great
Sure.
young man, great young player, and so this is, he could have walked away from it. He could have had short answers. These are a little long, but I think you'll like it, because he kept getting pressed. He sort of kept getting pressed about nobody wanted to say directly, hey, you dropped a lot of passes. You're not going to get anything out of that. Guy's going to dig in and get defensive. So lessons learned last season, confidence in my route running. I was pretty good in some areas, some routes. Going back, I could have been a little bit lower on some routes, had more patience with other things. I feel like a lot of my stuff was rust, a mix between anxiousness and, okay, I need the ball instead of being on the quarterback's timing. I was trying to rush on my time this year. I've realized patience with progressions and being confident in my route running. And so everyone was like, it's not kind of what we were looking for. And so they pressed him. And then bang, he opened up. He said, the main one that sticks out of my head, and we talked about it, Lo, Green Bay. That one, it was obvious that Justin's scrambling. I eased up because I didn't know what he was going to do. Instead of just staying on my path, which I should have done, it would have been an easy catch. Then at the catch point, I took my eyes off it. I didn't look it all the way in. It was a lack of focus by me altogether. It's something to me, my coaches, my teammates, I owe them better. It was straight up unacceptable. I go back to that moment when I step back out on practice or I'm feeling a certain type of way at practice. I always go back to that and remind myself, if I take a day off here, it'll correlate. Or if I wind down in a game like that, which obviously I will never do again.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, he really just kind of addressed, because that's the one. I mean, that catch beats Green Bay. That wins the game, and you're kind of still, you're like, okay, now we're at 500, and Green Bay is maybe out of it at that point. And and then he was and then he followed up by asking about drops. So then it's like, okay, he's opened the door. Now we can start peppering him on stuff about drops. And so he was asked, was it concentration? And he said 100%. The balls that I caught, I can see I'm looking it into what you just talked about, into the tuck. Literally every single one of my drops last year, I can see the ball and that my eyes are off of it and I'm looking upfield and I can't catch something I can't see.
Yeah, he's right. And it comes down, and I didn't play receiver, but I knew that also it's confidence. And I don't know if he said that in either in there, but I'm telling you, it's lack of confidence. When you go out there and all of a sudden you just drop the pass and all of a sudden they come back to you and said, I can't do that. And so you're overthinking because you haven't had enough success to be great yet. And so this is what this young man has to do. He has to be able to, like, the confidence. And that's why you're hearing the coaches and the staff, they're like, dude, we believe in it. You got to give these kind of guys, sophomore year especially, attaboys. He's got to step up and have that, because the athletic ability, you hear from his coaches, you hear from the peers, he has the athletic ability, he has the talent to be good. It's just the confidence. He has big hands. It's not like this kid can't catch. We know that. He plays receiver. But if you don't have the confidence, and you can say, okay, yeah, I took my head by, yeah, you got to look it in, but you got to believe in your hands. You can look the ball in, but if you don't believe in your hands, you say, I'm plucking this thing, and it's a lot more than just saying, I got to look it in. Yeah, that's one. Yeah, I got to stay low. Yeah, that's two. Yeah, I got to make sure that I'm doing what route I'm running. Yeah, that's all. But it all goes hand in hand. It's a sequence of events. And the last thing is saying, I'm going to catch this, and the confidence. And if you don't have it, you will start the body catch. You'll get in front of the ball. You'll make the position. You'll make the catch tougher than it should be. And that's what you see with a lot of receivers that struggle. They make the catch more difficult. They move their hand placement. They try to body. They do different things because they don't have the confidence.
No, look, it's a perfect description of it, Lo. And I think you could see it with Quentin all last year, where he'd gather. He would gather and he's trying to slow. You got to run through the ball, man. You're a receiver. You have got to run. Herbert is as precise a thrower as there is in the league. And if you are not running full speed and snatching that ball and continuing your route, then your timing is off of his timing. And now you've gathered and you've slowed and you're trying to bring that ball into your body to secure it, and it's too far out in front of you, you're absolutely right. And that was, I'm going to go back to Sanjay, to Coach Lau, because he was asked, is there something you can do to improve the hands of a receiver? And he says, hands is a broad term. It's too broad because why did you drop it? And he was very specific. He goes, I'm not talking about Q here. I'm talking about any receiver. Is it a concentration drop? Did you take your eyes off it? Were your hands too soft? Was your hand position wrong? Everything is a factor. You can't just say he dropped X amount of balls so he can't catch. Why did it happen? Is it vertical tracking? Did he not open his hips enough? I'm going to drill all of those and narrow it down. Is he truly deficient in one of these skills of catching the ball? Then we will absolutely work it. But I think you hit it on the head, Lo. I think all those indicators are there that it's confidence, right? Because why else would you gather? Why else would you go from here to this if you got confidence in your hands? You know what it is. Your thumbs are up.
Yep.
If you have confidence, if you don't, what? Your thumbs are down.
Yep.
And his thumbs are too often down. So I think
and to lead on to that, what it does too, Money, and this is what we're talking about, the transition. You're talking about going from good to great. Now you're talking about a quarterback that usually, Herbert, he's going to saw that missile on third down. He at OTAs the other day, throw it right in there, drops a dime, picks up the first down, picks up 30 yards. So what it does too, though, it's a trickle down effect. Now Herbert's saying, okay, this guy's coming open, and now he's becoming passive because he doesn't trust the receiver. Now he's going to lay it in there. Now you got time for interceptions. Now it's behind. Now it's all kinds because the judgment is there. So now his confidence in the receiver starts to fail. So this thing, you want to get it under control. And that's why it's imperative that they're after practice, they're going out there running routes full speed where he's doing these things. It's those extra things, not just in OTAs. This is stuff that off season. Hey, Herbert, give me an hour. I'll meet you at your house. We'll go play in your backyard. I'll go meet you at the local park. I'll drive an hour because you have to get the quarterback having confidence in you, because when you're starting to do that, so many drops and it's behind whatever, now he becomes passive and he's thinking about, okay, I got to push, I got to guide this ball to him, and just too many bad things can happen when you're guiding it.
Yeah, and I think we saw some of that. And I think we saw Q open on a handful of routes last year, and we know Justin sees everything. He has no problem finding an open man. Just go back to his rookie year when he made T. Billy and Jalen Guyton household names for Charger fans when Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were out there. Like, he will find you if you are open. And I do think there was some of that some of that trust had eroded, and that he started to look away. And, you gotta, to his credit, he tried to build him back up. He said all the right things, and I'm sure he's doing exactly that because they need him. They need him to be what we think his potential is. And I think he can get there. I do. I really do. It's just, the physical attributes, the athleticism is so impressive.
Sure.
And, he did it on the biggest stage when he tore up Michigan in the college playoff semifinal, for a 75-yard touchdown catch and like 160 or 70 yards in that game. So it's not like the moment was too big for him. He's done that before on the biggest stage up to that point. I will, however, contrast that with what Coach Lal said when asked about Ladd McConkey. He's very sudden in and out of his breaks. He understands the game. He's a detailed, precise person. When you teach him a new route, he will master it. If you have to hit it at 13 yards, Ladd will hit it at 13 yards. The more players that you have like that on your team, it will make your offense more crisp.
Wow, what a contrast. What a contrast. Rookie. What a contrast, though, right? When you hear the contrast of comparing two receivers, and even though one's probably more athletic and more talented, look at the comparative contrast. What is he saying? Dependable. That's what I heard out of that. What you just read to me. I have a coach that's saying, hey, the other guy, talent, man, he can do it. I got to find out this. It's so many variables that's he's asking the question and saying, I'm going to find out these things. But then when you talked about, Ladd, it was boom. Here's what it is. That says confidence. That breeds trust. That breeds success. That breeds this is a winner. Yeah. Because here's a guy that's saying right away, he goes out here, we tell him what to do, he's going to do it. So he's saying he can depend on him already. That's what you're hearing.
Yeah. And you saw it too, in OTAs yesterday, you saw, they were running third down drill. And I think on two of them, it was Ladd just in the exact right spot with a ball exactly right here, right at the numbers, and converting third downs like it was, a walk in the park. So I would expect big things from Ladd. I think a lot of people are. You fantasy football folks. If everyone's drafting and understandably the Malik Neighbors, the Roma Dunzes, the Marvin Harrisons really high, you can go ahead and probably wait. And I would say Ladd McConkey's a pretty safe bet, especially in PPR leagues, to catch a whole lot of balls.
Wow.
This upcoming season. At least that's what has shown so far. Now,
that's what's trending.
When you can throw the pads on, Quentin's 2 to 3 inches taller than Ladd, probably 15 to 20 pounds heavier. Things can change, but we saw him do it in the SEC, played X, played Z, played slot. They had McConkey all over the field. He was their best receiver. So I'm not saying the SEC is the NFL, but it's the closest thing we have to the NFL.
Sure.
In college football. And he was able to do it, and be part of that Georgia dynasty.
As I digress, you talked about talking with George Ortiz and talking about, what he was talking about, different players.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's probably uncomfortable. Were you guys able to ask why Gus Edwards hasn't been there? Has that question came up, or is it excuse practices, or does no one know?
Shame on me. No, I did not. And the running back coach, let me find. Running back coach was out there yesterday too. And he was talking and Keel McDonald. And when asked about Gus, he did not talk about why he wasn't there. He just said, big dude, tall, long, athletic. Can't wait to see him in training camp and the rest of it. Because, it's voluntary. So you can't, that's why it's hard. You can't really ask these guys about it because they can't say anything, or the NFLPA will come after them and they will get fined. So because it's voluntary OTA, if you're to say, even if they were to say like, hey, it'd really be great to have him here, that can get you in trouble.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. So that's why it's hard to ask that question, because that's what you're going to get. Because they know they're like, hey man, don't be putting me in a bad spot. I don't want to get fined, And so that's kind of, because it's voluntary, the NFLPA takes it very seriously if there are any public comments with a negative tone about a player that is not at OTAs.
It's interesting, Matt, that you say that about the NFLPA, and you're right, because you have your union reps and those guys. I had a guy, as I digress and talk about back in the day, I was playing with the Saints. Vince Buck, safety, number 26, safety. You probably remember him, played for the Saints.
Oh, yeah.
Hard-hitting guy. I was with the Saints, and Jim Moore is the coach. We're doing OTAs. It's kind of raining, and voluntary. And Vince like, hey, we shouldn't go out here. It's lightning and stuff going on. And so he called some of the guys back. Like, hey, look, we shouldn't, kind of that, hey, are we going to go out and trying to, be that liaison?
Right.
So we don't go out with it. Well, some guys were still out there, and we're just like, so Jim Moore just let it go. Guess what? He wasn't on the team that year.
Yeah.
So I get it. And some of these guys can call in and talk about it. So I think that, it's a slippery slope, though. And I'm not saying, I don't want the listeners out there to think that Gus is being that, because, it could be excused. It could be family issues. There could be a lot of things going on, have to move from Baltimore, all the different things there. And he's going to be, but if you're not showing up, I'm telling you, coaches don't forget that. I'm just being, as a player, money, I'm telling you, even though it's not mandatory, they're kind of mandatory. If you're not showing up and don't think that your coach is like calling you, or if it ain't excuse, they know what's going on, because it's hard not to. And if it's not a player of that has ilk, it has some that has gravitas, I'm telling you, sometimes you're behind the 8 ball. So just interesting, just the perspective, just telling you how it is, though.
And the good thing is he'll be here next week, unless he feels like getting fined, because next week is mandatory minicamp. So, whether or not, I doubt the team will make him available. Hopefully they'll have an open locker room. I would hope. I don't think they will. They normally don't. They have that in training camp. They don't for mandatory minicamp, but who knows? Maybe we get lucky and we have a chance to ask him where he's been and why he's been absent. But I think, I would imagine, this coming week, we're going to get the big names. This coming week, we're probably going to get Bosa. We'll get Herbert. We'll get Harbaugh again to wrap it up. We'll get Ortiz again to talk about, post June 1st cuts and what have we seen so far, who's out there. Maybe there's more signings coming. So I think we'll get those answers next week. Whether or not we get them directly from Gus, that's going to be up to the Chargers and Gus and whether or not they make themselves available. But, I think there is a school of thought that wonders, he signs, and then J.K. Dobbins signs, and then Vidal is drafted. Is he a little upset? Like, wow, this is supposed to be my opportunity to be a one. And now, I was a number 2 behind Dobbins when he was healthy. And now you got a rookie, and Isaiah Spiller is out here, and he's being celebrated by these guys as well. I was looking to sign a 1-year deal, put up 1,200 yards and double-digit touchdowns, and go get a nice fat contract that's going to set me up for the rest of my life. And maybe he's not happy. I don't know, but we'll have an opportunity to find out next week. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, we will. And Mike Harbaugh said, hypothetical.
Yeah, exactly. Hypothetical. It was a fun week, though. Fun week at the golf tournament. Fun week at OTAs. Be sure to check out the Chargers social channels. There's pretty sweet social channels. There's a pretty sweet no look from Herbert in there as well. And it's not like a little no look dump off. It's a no look freaking seed 15 yards down the middle of the field. So check that out. And we'll have those, we'll be talking about the veteran, the final I think it's 4 days. I want to say it's a 4-day mini camp. The final 4 days prior to the team breaking for like 6 weeks before training camp starts. Then we'll, that's it. They're done. Maybe a signing here or there, but most of the guys will have an opportunity to spread out and hang out for a little bit with their families or friends or do whatever they want to get that last, respite prior to the season going. But it was a fun week, Lo.
No question, man. You know what, though, Money? We won't. We'll be right here, baby.
Exactly.
You and I will be rocking it.
That's right. Every single week. And again, thank you to all of you for downloading, subscribing, rating, reviewing, leave the comments. We appreciate it. We'd love to kind of dig into them, and we'll probably be doing a lot more of that. So feel free to throw some questions in there. Lindsay will likely dig into those. She does a great job of curating all of your comments, and she puts too many compliments in there. She doesn't realize that I'm a negative person that thrives on negativity. So I don't like all of the Mo and Lo are the best comments that she puts together for us. I would much rather see, why does Matt have such a small head, and why it's not a 4 head, he's got a 6 head. Those are the things I like. So maybe moving forward a little more of those. Why does he look so weird? You could
easy,
4 head billboard, you can advertise.
Take it easy, Money. Take it easy. Wow.
I'm used to it, Lo. I'm a public person who has social media. I know what it's like. I'm used to these things every day. I'm not used to the compliments, but big thank you to all of you. Be sure to check out Bleav TV around the country and airports. I'll be in one tomorrow. YouTube. Follow us. Read the top Bleav stories at si.com and check out all the Bleav, BLEAV socials. Thanks, everyone, for checking in, and we'll be back next week.